I thought it was very much what you'd expect from Joe Biden. He's going through the motions now. He's interested in protecting his own legacy. As Jade was saying and Barbara Miller, there are recriminations now within the Democratic Party, and he is a target for many people. The knives are not, it's not just knives in the back, it's knives in the front. And the Democrats are starting to go through an inevitable period, actually, when you get smashed as comprehensively as they have, and this was an absolute drubbing, then there will be a lot of recriminations. Joe Biden's not terribly popular at the moment, even among the Democrats, and so I think today he said what he had to say. We need a smooth transition, peaceful transition. The code there was unlike the one that the new president gave me 4 years ago. And then, good on Kamala Harris, and, let's all sort of keep fighting for the cause of things that we value. He didn't address any of the key issues. Did he stay too long? Any of his own culpability in this defeat? So it was sort of, exactly what you would expect.
And John, now to Donald Trump, just how damaging were some of his relationships with senior staff during his first term, and how do you think he's going to approach that in this second term?
Well, Joe, I think he's learnt a lot. I think Trump 2.0 will be very different from Trump 1.0. When he took over the first time, his first term, he had not just the Democrats resisting him, but he had significant sections of the Republican Party, the sort of the Reagan Republicans who are more conservative, believe in institutions like the Department of Justice, the FBI. Donald Trump was at odds with them. He now, after this result this week, he owns the Republican Party. It's a wholly owned subsidiary now of Donald Trump, at least for the moment. He's learnt a lot from that first term. In the end, he fell out with a lot of his key advisors from that first term. In fact, many of them campaigned against him getting the job again. And I think now he'll value the people who showed him loyalty when he was in the wilderness. He was someone who many people had written off. Those famous scenes of him walking to the helicopter reluctantly when he was defeated last time, people thought he'd never return. Well, he's back in town, bigger than ever. And also now that he controls the Senate, the Republicans control the Senate, there won't be any problem him getting through any advisors he wants. So RFK Jr., who is an extreme anti-vaxxer, Donald Trump has said in the last few days, I want him to be let wild with the health system. Wild was the word Donald Trump used. And at that time, a week ago, people were saying, oh, well, but no, the Senate wouldn't confirm him. That's all over now. Donald Trump's in complete and utter control.
And some of Donald Trump's most searing criticism has been directed at the Department of Justice. To what extent do you think he's going to get to work putting a broom through that? And to what extent can he? I mean, in Australia, there's this separation between the public service and the politicians. But what's that balance in the US?
Technically, Joe, there are conventions here that these organisations should be at arm's length from the president. Donald Trump writes his own rules. We've seen that in the past. In fact, today we've seen what I think is the first salvo in the establishment fighting back. Jerome Powell, the most powerful central banker in the world, the head of the US Federal Reserve, was asked at a media conference a few hours ago, if Donald Trump asked you to resign, would you resign? And Powell paused for a second or two. One word answer, no. Now, that says a lot, that the head of the Federal Reserve is saying, even if the President of the United States wants me to go, I'm not going. This will be replicated across this city where I am, Washington, D.C. The establishment has started to fight back. Now, who may win? Trump versus the establishment? A lot of people would put their money on Trump. It's going to be a hell of a fight.
Interested to hear your perspective on what Vladimir Putin had to say overnight. He's repeated what he said about the post-Cold War Western dominance crumbling, but it's interesting to hear that in light of the ascendancy of Donald Trump once again and the proposal about Ukraine.
Yes, that's right. I think Vladimir Putin said that he thought that Donald Trump had handled the assassination attempt like a man. And I think that what we'll see is they have a strange relationship, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Bob Woodward's been on television here in America in the last 24 hours saying that he thinks it's actually quite a sinister relationship. In terms of that he thinks Vladimir Putin may have a certain leverage over Donald Trump, although he didn't really go into details about that. But they have an opaque relationship. They've kept in touch even since Donald Trump's been out of office. Now the Ukrainians are absolutely nervous about what might happen here because they didn't want Donald Trump to be elected. The 3 visits I've made to Ukraine since the Russian invasion, they had as much eye on Washington as they did on Moscow. And they're now terrified that Trump will get Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky in a room together and basically say to them, okay, guys, the war's over. He has no particular leverage over Putin, but he has complete leverage over Zelensky because he can turn off the NATO tap. He can turn off the funding. And without NATO's support, Ukraine, the Russians will march into Kyiv. Ukraine on its own can't fight off the Russians, which means the Europeans might have to really come much more into the breach.
Okay, John Lyons there in Washington.